Welcome to this Ultima webinar. My name is Dennis, and I'm a consultant at Ultima. I work a lot with SharePoint Online, Power Platform, but also other Microsoft related products. Maybe some people already know me because I'm also heavily involved in the Power Platform community under my handle @piscornovis. So yeah, to follow me or reach out to me if you have any questions. The aim of today's webinar is go through a couple of announcements which Microsoft recently shared. Currently, we are in release wave number 1 of the Power Platform of the year 2022, but they also had the Build conference in the end of May, and they also announced a couple of things related to the Power Platform. So today I will talk you through those main announcements. And second of all, and for the people who have seen my previous webinars, I'm also gonna show you a lot of demos, or a lot, 3. But yeah, I will demonstrate and just dive into the actions, the expressions, and all those kind of things. So I'm very hands-on kind of guy, so I really like to share that with you. And today I will focus on 2 main topics. One is the slice function. This is an expression function, or a function of the expression language of Power Automate, and that function has been recently introduced. And in my use cases, I found it was very useful, and that's why I wanted to share with you how you could use it and what the benefits are, and how it's different from functions like the substring. So that's part 1 of the demos, and part 2 is the Graph API. People tend to use the Graph API more and more in Power Automate to integrate with other products of Microsoft, but also But what I've seen is that people use it for the basic request, like get an object. But Graph API also supports query parameters, and I would like to demonstrate that today and show what the benefits of those are as well. So that's the outline, the agenda for today. So yeah, let's kick off by going through the announcements. So yeah, like I mentioned, MS Build was a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. And Microsoft introduced a couple of interesting things. So first of all, the icon. Power Platform didn't have its own dedicated icon before. You can see that here on the slides in the, yeah, directly after the word Power Platform. It has its own green icon now. So yeah, if you see branding or Microsoft communication, yeah, in the future you will see that icon being used. Second of all, one of the biggest announcements was the introduction of a 5th Power Platform product. So they introduced Power Pages. Power Pages, generally speaking, is a solution to build low-code websites. So it could be very useful to use it as a public website which interacts with other products of the Power Platform and the backend. So it's very useful in that scenario. And for the people who think, but wait a minute, they already had a product or a feature for that. Yes, that's correct. So it's actually a rebranding of the Power Apps portal feature. So they extracted it from the Power Apps, product, and they uplifted it as its own separate product. But yeah, for the people, so that could be a benefit if you already have worked with Power Apps portals. Your time to start or your time to get familiar with the product will be probably a lot lower, because you will see a lot of the same concepts in Power Pages. Power Pages is also now free to try out. So Microsoft has a free trial period of 30 days, and it's available for everybody. So you can just sign up for that. So I would definitely recommend that to have a look at this new product. So that's the new product, Power Pages. Second of all, in Power Apps, what I did, excuse me, in Power Apps, what I did is they introduced a feature called Express Design. It's an AI infused feature. So what you can do with Express Design is sometimes it can be challenging to create your own app with controls and placing it in a certain order. And with Express Design, what you can do is you can create a mock-up, like a drawn image, or something like Figma Design, which is a third-party application to make your mockups or your designs for applications. And you can import that into Power Apps in the Express Design feature, and that will turn it into an actual Power Apps app. So yeah, that's obviously very powerful. That's a really quick way of starting from scratch. If you just control an app and then import it, and then after that you have a first working app, that's very powerful. So I would also definitely recommend having a look at that. Again, I believe this is also available already to try out, so definitely have a look at that one as well. And then for Power Virtual Agents, so the chatbots of the Power Platform, what Microsoft is doing is consolidating the two branches of the product, which are Bot Framework Composer and Power Virtual Agents itself, into one designer, so to speak. So at the moment, if you want to create an advanced topic and you want to code stuff, and you need to use code, then you're bound to the Bot Framework Composer, which has its own client, which has its own language, all these kind of things. And Microsoft is trying to embed that all into one product, and that will be into the unified canvas. So that's obviously a big deal. That's a good, from my point of view, that's really great, because then I only have to build my topics and my bot into one designer and not in two. And second of all, what they're also going to do is, what they announced is they're going to introduce Power Effects, which is expressing language, which they are aiming to have available throughout the whole Power Platform. But at the moment, it's used in Power Apps. But they're also going to introduce that in virtual agents. So that's a good thing. Then it's usable in more products. So yeah, again, good consolidation. I think a good improvement. The unified canvas and these features are in private preview, so that's unfortunately not something which you can just sign up for and then you can try it out without any approval. For that you have to submit a form, and then hopefully Microsoft will allow you into that program. So that's private preview. And for Power Automate and Power BI on the build, there weren't a lot of big announcements. So there are only two. One was for Power Automate, there was the virtual desktop starter kit. So that's for the RPA portion of Power Automate. So typically, what you do, or what people would do with robot process automation of Power Automate, is to run such an automation unattended on a server somewhere. But sometimes one server is not enough. Sometimes you need more servers because you want to process a lot of these kind of automation requests. And what Microsoft now has done is they've created this Azure Virtual Desktop Starter Kit, which allows you to easily spin up these kind of virtual machines where you can run your RPA instances on. So again, good improvement, but yeah, it's a very specific one. So it's really for scaling. So it's not something which you directly will see in the editing experience or as an author, but it's more infrastructure related. But yeah, good announcement as well. And then lastly, for Power BI, yeah, they've announced the data mart feature in preview. So at the moment, if you want to build a data mart or data warehouse, you would have to do this in a project. You would have to get resources of people who know how to extract, transform, and load all these kind of different data sources into one relational database. And what I've now done is they created this feature where you can, as an author of reports or as a contributor in a workspace, you can actually create that with just a couple of clicks. So in concept, it looks very powerful. I haven't tested this myself before, but yeah, it looks very usable. It's like self-service data warehouse stuff. So yeah, definitely also have a look at that one as well. So yeah, it's a short recap of the build announcements. For the people who want to read this after this meeting, what Microsoft has is it's a book of news. So all these things. So I would recommend just Googling for book of news, MS Build, and then on this book of news, you have table of contents, and all these announcements I just mentioned are listed here under the Power Platform. So we will share this link also after this webinar with you. But yeah, all these ones are listed in here, and per announcement, you will have also a link with more details. So I would definitely recommend going to this book of news as well. So again, this was the recap of the announcements. So more the demo related stuff. So today I'm going to show you something about the slice and something about Graph API query parameters. So to start off with slice, slice is an expression function which allows you to slice a string value. So today I'm going to show you that by using the following use case. So let's assume that on a SharePoint site there is a certain folder structure for managing project documents, and you are either the program manager or maybe the IT admin, and you're trying to monitor that. One of the things which you can now do with Power Automate is create a kind of a notification. So in this setup, or in this example, what I've done is I've created a flow which notifies every time a file gets created and sends that notification via Teams to a specific person. Obviously, in this case, me, but yeah, obviously that could be somebody else as well. But there's a specific requirement in this, because this folder structure has a certain naming convention and logic. So as you can see in here, it has a region or a county, in this case for the UK people, and then after that it has a city and then the name of the project. And in this instance, we are interested in for which city a file has been created. So that can be quite challenging. And with the slice today, I'm going to show you how you could extract this city part of the breadcrumb, and then also how we can clean it up, because as you can see, this is, in this instance, it's Reading, but Reading is written in a strange way, and this is a pretty common scenario that people create these kind of folders but rename it, or they introduce strange characters which are not part of a valid city name. So yeah, again, this is our example. So these are the two things for the use case, and yeah, what I'm going to use is as I said, a slice. I'm also going to show you old school kind of way substring with a substring length, subfunctions in expression language, and it's also, this example also demonstrates how you could use indexes. So yeah, without further ado, let's switch to the demo environment. So yeah, to just show you what I have in my demo environment. So it's this webinar today, and I've created its own separate site collection. So this is just a standard SharePoint site collection. Let me see if I can magnify this a bit so it's hopefully a bit clearer. So on this site, I have this document library. It's a shared document library. Like I mentioned on the slides, it has a folder structure. The folder structure is county. So here I have Berkshire, Oxfordshire, and within that county, I have a couple of cities, in this case, Slough and Reading. And as you notice already, I made some strange, or added some strange characters to it, which normally wouldn't be there, but this could happen in this kind of libraries. People work with these files, maybe they rename it and such. So in this per city, there are projects listed in there, and in there you have the project related files, things like a statement of work, maybe a project plan, all these kind of things. What I've done is I'm monitoring this whole library. So first of all, let me open the flow I created. So the flow, what this is I created an automation, and I used an automated flow. So it's using a trigger. So let me open up the demo one. Sorry, it's taking a bit of time to load. So let me also open up that up in edit mode. Oh, by the way, talking about announcements and new features, this on the right, let me blow it up a bit. This solutions section on the right hand side and this process insights, these are also new features from release wave 1. So this has been introduced a couple of weeks, a month ago or so. So this, from a monitoring and admin point of view, it's really useful. Now I know it's part of a certain solution and I can click into that solution. And also you have this analytics feature where you can analyze the flow and how well it performs and get improvements from Microsoft, or recommendations for improvements by Microsoft. So definitely have a look at these new features as well. So let's open up the flow. So again, this flow looks at the document library. So first of all, the trigger action is whenever a file is created, and I'm not interested in the contents of the file, so that's why I'm using the properties only. I'm looking at every file entry, so potentially this will also be triggered by the creation of a folder, by creation of files in other locations of the library. So ideally, you would either select a specific folder, or you could also add a trigger condition to make the scope of this trigger action a bit smaller, and don't let it trigger too much. But yeah, for this demo, it's fine. So that's the first action, the trigger action, which yeah, can give us back some details. One of those details is the folder path. So just to run it with one of the previous instances. So let me run it with this one. By the way, this testing is always useful if you want to test run something and you already had a successful trigger. You can reuse that, because otherwise I would have to create my file from scratch, which takes more time. So that's why that test with previous instances is very useful. So in this instance, yeah, you can see this is the folder path. Great, I can now use that. I can post that in a channel message, but I'm not interested in the whole path. So I'm only interested in this part of the folder. So what you can do is you can use expression language. So for the people who've never used that, if you want to create an expression, you have this FX button. When you click that open, you can select dynamic content fields like the folder path, but you can then also type expression language around it. So in this instance, I know it's item number, it's shared documents, region, city. So it's it's a third folder of the folder path. So I could split. A split is a function which expects a string value, in this case the folder path, and you can split it on a certain character, a separator. So in this case, that's the /. So if I would do that, it would give me back a list of of folders. So let's do that just to show you what would happen. So again, saving and testing it with the same instance. As you can see now, we've got an array of items, and that array has every folder as a separate item. So great. But again, we're only interested in the third item, and that's where indexes come in play. So what you can always do if you have an array, you can refer to a specific item by using an index. And yeah, it is a bit strange, or not strange, but it's something to know, but or to get familiar with. But the first item or an array or an index always starts with 0. 0 is item number 1. 1 is item number 2. 2 is item number 3. So that's why in this instance, because the structure is always the same, for city, we need to use index number 2. So after the split, you just refer to the third item by this part. So let's add that and just show you that. So as you can see now, we have the city. So great. That's what we were after. Obviously, again, you can input that in a channel message, but it's not great because we see these hyphens, leading hyphen and trailing hyphen, which we don't want. So that's where our slice function comes into play. So let's continue with our next step, which is the old school way of doing this. So before the slice function was introduced. So before the slice function was introduced, we still had a function called substring. So just to again delete this and show you, what does a substring function do? What I always can recommend is just typing the word of the function and then use an open the function, and then you can see IntelliSense here. So as you can see in here, a substring expects a string. So in this case, our splitted array or our third item of the array. And then you can use a start index and the length of how much you want to return. And this is why it's the substring approach is useful, but it's also challenging, because you can imagine if you have a leading hyphen and a trailing hyphen. The leading, it's obvious because you don't want to start at the first you want to start at the first in the second character, but for the length you have to do some calculation because you don't know how long the city name will be. So it could be Reading, it could be Slough, it could be London. I think those are all have pretty common number of characters, but you can have longer names like Cambridge or something like that. So that's where some calculation comes into play. So let's reuse what I have here in the notes. So this is the actual function, how you could do that with a substring. So let's talk you through that. So again, the first part is what I want to get the substring from. So obviously that's the second item, Reading, with the leading and trailing hyphen. Then the starting position, which is 1, because we want to skip the first hyphen. And then we have a calculation. So in this case, that's sub of subtract. So that's sub the length of the whole item. So in this case, that's Reading plus the 2 hyphens minus 2, because we want or subtract 2. And then we get the actual length of the words Reading. So this is a way of getting that same cleaned up city name. So just to show you the proof of that this function does work with substring and length minus 2. And here you can see the cleaned up version of Reading. So before it was this, now it's this. So great, we can use that, but again, as you can see, it already looks pretty complicated, and you have to be aware that with all the open and closing parentheses and all these, it's easy to make a typo, basically. So when Microsoft introduced the slice function, I was pretty happy, because nowadays you can do it like this. Again, it's still a couple of functions, but at least it looks a lot cleaner. So what does the slice do? Let me remove this again. So a slice expects a string, a start index, just like the substring function, but an end index and not a length. And this is the big difference. You can give an end index number, and that's really great, because now I can suddenly say, give me a certain character from the end, and it also accepts negative numbers. So when I saw this, or I saw people in the community using this, I was like, oh, great. So in this instance, what I can do is, you can already see it here in the notes. I can just say my start character is 1, and my end character is -1. So then it goes back 1 character. So in this case, then it will also ignore that trailing hyphen. So a lot easier. No strange length calculation. This makes my life at least a lot easier. So that's why I wanted to share that with you. So just to show you again the end result. So here you see the same version of the cleaned up city name. So again, great. And then just to show you in this use case what I'm doing in here, I'm sharing this in a private chat with a Flowbot. to myself. Again, this could also be somebody else. And this is the output of the, unredacted, or how do you say that, non cleaned up version. And this is the one with the slice. And just to show you the end result, and I probably have a lot of test instances now because I've been retesting it over and over again. So apologies for maybe a bit of a quirky example. But yeah, you will see a notification of that in my Teams client, which hopefully loads soon. And if not, I will continue with my other demo, but it should be loading. Yeah, come on Teams, you can do it. There it is. And then hopefully the flowbot will show up. There's my flowbot. And now hopefully the chat itself. So yeah, you can see in the excerpt of the last message that it included the old version, so the underscore or the hyphen reading. And now I'll give it 10 seconds, and otherwise I will continue because it's very slow. Teams, come on. I'm so sorry about this. I don't know why it's so slow. Yeah, that's 10 seconds. Okay, let's continue because I don't want to be waiting on Teams. So going back to the slides. So over here, by the way, you can see a screenshot of the Teams notification. So it will show up as Dennis via Power Automate. This way you can tell it's a flowbot because it shows the delegation or at which person has it's running as, and then it was just a notification about a new file has been created for city, and then in this instance the wrong name, but with the cleaned up version you would see just the name reading. So that's the first version of Slice. So what I've also done today is I've prepared a second version because I can imagine you're not only using it on a file per file basis, it could also be in other situations it could be useful. So the second version of today is using the slice in a scenario of an onboarding list. So a lot of companies deal with joiners, leavers, movers, those kind of scenarios. And sometimes you just need to prepare data for other systems. So other systems might consume a CSV file with all the new joiners. So let's assume that in this instance, that list of scheduled joiners is managed in an onboarding list on SharePoint. And in that list, we have the names of the people joining the company, what their starting date is, and in which department they are joining. What I'm interested in is from that onboarding list, getting the list of people who are joining at the beginning of next month, and extracting that into a CSV file. So that's what's the aim. What the aim is of this this example. And yeah, to relate it to the slice feature, as you can see in the screenshot, the department has again a couple of typo things in there. So we're going to use that slice feature again. And at the same time, in this example, I'm also going to show you how you can use OData filter queries, which can be very useful. So I was mentioning I want all the people who are starting at the beginning of next month. So I'll show you a OData filter query for that. And then also I will show you how you can use a select and create CSV table and a create file to generate that CSV file. So that's the example. Let's go back again to the demos. So this is our second demo. By the way, just a quick look if, yeah, it loaded. So this was the Reading file folder, just so you guys have seen it. Yeah, the actual example. So this was demo number 1. This is demo number 2. So demo number 2, it's aimed as a one-off kind of flow run, or maybe a scheduled flow. So in this instance, the trigger would either be manually run this flow or use a recurrence with a certain time schedule. So I was a bit lazy, to be honest, so I used the manual trigger flow, but obviously you can also replace this trigger by using the recurrence. So for the people who are not familiar with that, yeah, the recurrence is just like a scheduled task on your Windows system. Yeah, you can run it, you can set a timing schedule. So in this instance, I could run it. In this use case, it probably would make the most sense to run it like just at the end of the month. So you could say like a start time would be the last Friday of the month, and then look forward to see which people are starting in the early next month. So you could use that, something like that. So let's save this. So this is the recurrence, so the trigger of the flow. And then the next item would be to look into that list of items and just to show you that list. So again, the same webinar SharePoint site, and that site has a list. In that list, I have a couple of pretty straightforward columns. So a title, a start date, which is a date time column, a department, which is a choice field. And to be clear, it doesn't allow multiple selections because I can't imagine people working at multiple departments at the same time, but maybe I'm wrong. And then an employee, which is by the way, person or group type of field. So it does have more data in it. It's aware of all these details of the person. So this is the setup of my onboarding list. And as you can see, looking at the data, Jane and Mark are bound to start next month, and Bill is starting the month after. So I'm only after these 2 rows of our onboarding list. The Bill joiner should be ignored. So going back to the flow, how are we going to solve that part of only, that Bill basically is ignored? So we can do that by, first of all, using the get items. That's a way of interacting with a SharePoint list. And then here under show advanced options, you have something which is called the filter query. And that filter query allows us to filter for stuff in the list. So yeah, as you can see in here, a couple of columns are listed out here. So the title, starting date, all these kind of things. Although I like this interface with drop downs and equals, less than, and those kind of things, I'm still more of an expression and more typing kind of guy. So I always switch to the advanced mode because then I can just type. So in this case, I will do that as well. So in here, you can see I've used the starting date. One thing to mention is this filter query expects you to use the internal names of the columns. So maybe, hopefully you noticed, but starting date in the list has a space character in this. If you would go to that's the display name. if you would go to the list settings, you would see what the actual internal name is, and you can see that by, sorry, maybe that's a bit too fast. So when you go to list settings, you have an overview of all your columns here in the middle section. When you click on the starting date, you can actually see the name in here. Hopefully that's clear, but that's the actual internal name of the field. That's the thing you should be using in your OData filter query in here. So hopefully that's clear. So that's part number one. Part number two is determining what the first of next month is. And luckily, Power Automate expression language has different functions for that. So one of the things which you can use is the UTC now. So that's today's date. Today's date is the 15th of June 2021. And from there, I can deduct what the actual month is. The month is the 6th, the number 6. What's next month? Yeah, just add 1. So that would be 7. So that's what I'm doing here. UTC now, so that's a format. So in this format, I'm saying, oh, from today's date, only give me the month. I'm turning it into a number. Otherwise, I can't calculate. I can't add stuff to it. So that's why an int is around it. And then with the add function, I'm saying add 1. So this part will give me 07. So great. That's what I'm after. And then with a concatenation, I'm saying, okay, still give me the years and add the hyphen back. And then at the last part, give me the first day, so 01. So this is a way of determining the first of next month. There are other ways because you also have start of month, so there are probably also other ways of doing this, but yeah, for this demo, I wanted to share you this approach. So yeah, just to show you how that would look, let me run a fill test. Sorry, I need to save that again. Oh, because I've changed the trigger action, I can't rerun it because then it will, yeah, it would be confused. So let me just test it manually. That's the downside of changing stuff in your demo real time. Okay, sorry about that. I'm creating the same file over and over again, and it doesn't like that because it's already exists. So that's one thing to know about this automation. This file name needs to be either unique or, yeah, it just needs to be unique. So I wasn't doing that, so that's why I got that error. So let's run it again. So now it shouldn't fail again. Okay, cool. So just to show you with the filter query, if you want to see what it actually did with the expression language is, it just presented this. In the outputs, you can actually see what your entries are. So if you would go to the body values, you can actually see I have only 2 items, 0 and 1, not 0, 1 and 2. So this is already a good sign because I'm expecting Bill not to show up. And if we just expand it, hopefully it's clear. It's pretty small, but we have Mark and Jane, which both are bound to start next month. So that's good. So our OData filter query works. So that's the first part. So the second part is typically, maybe I should have gone to the test again. Yeah, let's go to the output again, just to show you. Typically yeah, now it happens again. Sorry. Keep forgetting that I need to create a unique file. Let's run it again. So when you use the get items, you will get a lot of details. And typically people don't want to have every single column. So it's not, as you can see in the list, you have these 4 columns. That's probably what you want, maybe even those 3 columns in your CSV file. But what people don't realize is out of the box, you will get all these columns as well, which are not shown in the view. And that's obviously not something we want to include in our CSV file. So that's where, and yeah, again, let me show you in the output. So that's where the select comes into play, because in a select you can say, okay, from that set of results, only give me certain properties. It's like for the people who know T-SQL, it's like select. Instead of select asterisk from table, you can say select ID, comma, title, comma. Yeah, only retrieve certain fields from there. So just to show you what I'm talking about, here in the body value, you can see it's giving me back the ID, title, starting date, all these different fields, and I'm only after a couple of those fields. So yeah, that's what we're trying to do. So we can do that by using this select. And in this select, I'm using the output of this get items, and then in here I can select my specific fields. So let's say I would add the title as well. It's probably not useful in this scenario, but then you can, in the value, you can just look it up here from the get items. So this would be a way of consuming an additional field as well. And talking about the slice, in here, I'm using a similar kind of expression. It's a bit more extensive because we don't want to slice for every single department field, because as you could see in here, you have HR and IT. Those are written properly. Those don't have that strange hyphens in the name. So those we want to exclude from the slicing expression. So that's where the if equals statement comes into play. So talking out loud, what this does is if item department slash value, which is the label of the choice field, equals this value, slice something with the same approach as before, in only in this case 1 minus 2, because it has 2 hyphens trailing. Otherwise, just show the choice label in the instance of HRIT. So yeah, that's how we're using that. And with a select, you can just refer to this kind of fields by using the item expression. So that's also useful to know. As you can see in here in the tooltip, it also does that out of the box. So that's the slice in the select. And then afterwards, I'm using that output in here and then using the output of the CSV table just to create the file. And then just to quickly show you, because I'm mindful of our time and I do want to show the third demo as well, is the files I've created. And again, I need to create unique files. So in this instance, that's my latest file. And as you can see, legal is written in the proper way, and it only has 2 entries. And in the start date, I've also used some formatting. So what I've done is I've used like the July M format. So again, some nice formatting and some expression language. So that's the second demo. And then the third demo, and hopefully I can talk you through that pretty quickly because we only have 8 minutes left. So the last demo of today is Graph API query parameters. So I've actually, for this use case, I actually was triggered by one of the people I know from the power users community, Tom Riha. I will share a link of his blog as well after this meeting, because kudos for him for inspiring me, but also for sharing what his approach. But I've noticed that he was using Graph API to get a list of group owners, but he was using like first filtering the groups, then getting the owners of the group, and then selecting the email. And I responded to him like, why shouldn't you use query parameters? Graph API has things like filtering, expanding, and selecting itself as well. So yeah, that's what this demo is about. So just to go through the third demo. So in this demo, I've got two examples. The example of Tom, which again works. It's not a bad way of doing it, but yeah, I just want to show you how it differs and how filtering and expanding in Graph API could be very useful. Because in his example, he used 5 actions, and in my example, I just use 1. So yeah, obviously the time it takes will be a lot less. So that's one benefit. And second of all, yeah, it's just good to know about query parameters. So I've got 2 scopes. A scope is, by the way, just a container where you can place other actions in. So that's already very useful. And this is the original approach. It's listing all the groups somebody belongs to, in this case me. In his approach, he's filtering. He's only looking for the IT group. And from that IT group, he grabs the group ID and then lists owners with a separate separate request. And then he uses a select. So the output of this is put in the select, and then he only retrieves the email. So great. That's definitely a way of getting all the owners of one specific group. But I thought, yeah, why not just use filter query parameters or query parameters for Graph API? So this action does exactly the same thing. So just to talk you through this, this is the same request, but instead of filtering afterwards, so grabbing all the groups, you can just say, I want to use this filter on display name, for example, and then I just only want to have return the group, which is IT. So that's the first part. The second part is getting the owners. For that part, you can actually use a query parameter which is called expand. So you can make relationships with other resource types. So in here, I'm expanding on owners. So that's the second part, which is still in the same action. And then the third part is retrieving a specific property of that related table entity, given a name, in this case, the owners. So that's where the select comes into play. So that's a nested select into this owners. So just to show you this example. So yeah, this is a list of all groups, which is very extensively. So, and then it filters stuff. So in here you can see the one group, then it loops through it because it's just one group. Yeah, it's pretty quick. And then in here you can see a selection of the owners, and then yeah, the same query, which obviously is only 0 seconds. With this, it's a bit more time. But yeah, in here you can see the same list of people. So yeah, that's in a nutshell how you could use query parameters. Again, Microsoft has documentation about that, so I would definitely recommend looking at this documentation. So in here you can see a lot of examples of these type of query parameters for the graph, and also talked a lot about expression language. So definitely bookmark this page, which is the reference guide for workflow expressions. And yeah, we talked a bit today about the slice. Yeah, that's in here. We talked today about things like substring, that's in here. So a lot of great examples. And again, we will share these links also after the meeting. But yeah, that was my last demo. Thank you very much for your time. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Yeah, that's our webinar of today. Thank you.